Okay, so today we are going to be creating a sniper scope for After Effects. So this is the end result, and it is pre-animated, so you can see it's a normal slider scope with a transparent area. The number will keep changing, this slider keeps moving along, and it's really easy to add as many elements as you want. So let's get straight into it. So I'm going to start by creating a new composition. I'll just call this tutorial, and I'm going to make it 1920 by 1080 and 10 seconds long, and then I'll click OK. So I'm going to make sure I've got transparent mode on because I want to see areas of transparency, because there needs to be a hole in it to make sure you can see the footage beneath it. So you could just add your footage in After Effects, but I'm going to make it so it's compatible to work with Premiere Pro or After Effects. So to get things started, I'm going to hit Ctrl-Y to make a new solid, and I'm just going to make this 2000 by 2000, and we'll call this background, and then we'll click OK. So you can see it's a bit bigger than the composition, and I've just made that so we can align it to get the hole in the perfect center. So I'm going to make it about that big, and then I can use this align tab, and if you don't have that, you click window and then make sure you've got a tick next to align, and then just align it, and it will align the mask to the right place. And then we can hit subtract, and you can see there's still a bit of a gap there. So to fix that, I'm just going to make an extra solid, and we can put this underneath, grab the rectangle mask, and just make sure we've got that covered. And then we can pre-compose them together to make the hole. So we'll just call this hole. Okay, so now we're going to make sure we've got nothing selected and that we've got the rectangle mask tool. And I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to draw some shapes. So this is going to be my line, and then I can hit align, and that'll center it. And then if we click off, we can do the horizontal one. We'll align that. And then you can see we've got quite a good looking cross. So now we're going to make the animated element. So I'm going to create a sort of slider for it to slide on, like that. That looks pretty cool. And then I'm going to create the little slider thing, and I'm going to try and center it. It doesn't need to be that accurate, but that's what's going to be sliding. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our sliding layer, and I'm going to go into transform, position. I'm going to right click and separate dimensions, and now you can see we've got X position and Y position separated. Because we don't want it to go up, we can just animate the X. So I'm going to use a expression, so alt click the stopwatch, and then I'm going to type in wiggle, and then I'm going to use 0.25, and then you have to experiment a bit with this, but I'm going to put in 200. And then it should animate the slider to move across, and you can see at no point does it go out of the boundaries, so 200 worked. And also I'm going to enable motion blur, so it blurs the edges a bit, just to make it a bit more realistic. You can see there's a tiny bit of blur now. And also for some reason we have this happening, which is a bit annoying, so we'll just realign that again. There we go. That's fine. So now we're going to make the number appear. So to do that, I'm going to grab my text, and I'm just going to click it and then type nothing in it. And it'll create this empty text layer, and then we can put this down, text, and you see we've got source text here. So I'm going to add an effect, so I'm going to go up into effect, and then expression controls and slider control, and then I'm going to alt click source text and drag the whip to go onto this slider thing here. Then we can click off. So now when we do the slider, you can see it generates a random number for us, which is pretty cool. We might not want it to go that high, so we can edit value and then change the amount it can go. So we could change it to just 50 if we didn't want it to go so high. And you can see now we are getting decimals, which we don't want. So we can use the expression dot value 2 fixed, and then 0, and that'll get rid of all the decimals. So now what we're going to do is go to our slider, which is in effects, slider control, and then we're going to alt click this and just type in our wiggle again, and this can be 0.25, and then since it only goes to 50, let's go 49, like so, and then we have a randomly generated number. So I'm just going to position this next to our slider, and it looks like we've got a sort of cool custom HUD element, which is pretty cool. Another thing that you might want to do is add some grids to make it look like the footage isn't as good because you're looking down the sniper scope. So to do this, we can create a new solid, and we're just going to make this comp size, and we'll call this grid. And then we're going to add an effect. We'll just go over to here so I can search for it, and then need to wait for it to initialize the animation presets. There we go, and it's called grid. So we can put grid onto this top layer, and you can see now we have a grid, which is pretty cool. So we'll move this first one out and down, and we can see that we get lots of little grid things. We'll move this one out, and now we have a grid. We can put this underneath our whole layer, and we have a really big grid, and then we can change the transfer mode to soft light. And if we just turn off this so we can see what's going on here, the black is the gaps, and that looks pretty cool. You can change the color, so maybe you prefer black, and yeah, that looks pretty cool. So now that we've got that, you might want to add a sort of color grade. So we can create a new adjustment layer by clicking Ctrl-Alt-Y. Drag that underneath the grid or on top of it if you want. And I'm just going to add curves. And we can just go into the greens and boost the greens. Now obviously you can't see anything, so if I put maybe a solid in there, as I don't have any footage, we'll just make this red. Click OK. Drag this on the bottom. You can see, not really, but the adjustment layer will affect everything underneath, and I'm going to put that on top of my grid, so it makes it green, which looks pretty cool. So that is my custom sniper HUD display. I'm going to take down the opacity on that, make it fit in a bit more. When rendering this out, you want to use the render queue, so I'm going to drag it in to here, and then in output module you want to make sure you've got RGB plus alpha. That means you keep the hole in the middle, which you can use it in any project, and then you can just click render and render it out. So that's all for this tutorial. If you enjoyed, make sure to give it a like. See you next week.